I have reached the end of the foot, the toes here, and so I've taken my needle through the loop that had a safety pin in it that was securing it until this moment, and then I'm going to go through that stitch just a couple of times to secure it. Next, I'll move over to the second leg, and I will cut another piece of yarn to sew the second leg together, and I'm going to do that in exactly the same way I did the first leg. So I'll just join this piece of yarn to the middle of the legs here at the hips. I'm going to tie that end to the long end of the thread, and I'll tuck the end inside. And if you have any strands of yarn that that you've done color changes with, then just those ends get tucked inside. And I will I'll actually show you. I'll reach across and grab a one of the other bare bodies and show you how that's done. But for now, I'm going to keep stitching across the gap until the second leg is sewn together. And then at this point, I will again take that loop off, take this end through, tie these ends together, and then I'll come back with the multicolored body. So here is the basic body with the center back and the center seams of the legs sewn together, the inseams. Now that's how you do just the one color bear. If you have woven a bear like this one that is multicolored, or this one, then you'll have ends along the center back that will go inside the bear. So for instance, this is the striped bear, and so I leave the ends of some of the colors of yarn long enough that I can use them to stitch the different parts of the body together, as well as using them then at the top, just to make sure that the top edge is covered the warp strands, because the striped bear is woven in a tapestry technique, weft face technique, that covers all the warp strands, but at the ends you do have the contrast color of the warp. So what I do is I will take these ends, and I think I will just snip this set of ends off, because I really don't need them for the stitching. But what I will do then is tie a knot. Now normally, if you are weaving a sweater or a scarf or a shawl or tapestry, you would not be tying ends in knots at the sides. But with the teddy bears, you want to have those ends really secured, and using a knot is actually the best choice. So what I'm going to do is I will scoot up to the top. This is where my color changes were, along the side edge of the bear, and I could just as easily have gone up inside the channel of weaving, but it's okay to cheat a little with this, because with the bears you're going to be covering all the, actually I do need to go inside the channel to get to the top here. Okay, so you're going to be covering up those knots and the very ugly little joins. And so what I'm doing is exactly the same thing that I did with the basic bear, which is to stitch from the center across and back, picking up the edge stitches. And get out of the way here, I'm going to stick this one inside, and I could probably trim off that. Actually, I'll just pop this inside because it's being quite argumentative right now and we don't need that. Okay, so again, I just continue stitching from the edge stitch to the edge stitch, pulling up, and the edges just pull together ever so nicely. So that's how you will have a clean finish on the back of your teddy bear. Even when your teddy bear is multicolored. So I'm going to carry on stitching this one together, and when I've got this little teddy bear body and legs together, I'll come back, and then you can see there's a little bit of kind of funny business there. I'm just pulling on that. When you pull on the seam, it becomes, on the stitching yarn, it drops away quite nicely. So the back of your bear is really totally smooth and nice. While I was stitching the first leg together, I realized that I hadn't made it really clear about when you're stitching pick and pick rows like these legs together, you want to be matching up your which loops you're picking up. So along this edge, I won't pick up any of the color change loops of yarn. I'll just be picking up the navy blue, and on this side I have navy blue color changes, but I will only pick up the sapphire blue, so that I end up with the leg being, so you can see that there's just no, I think it shows up more easily here, that there's just no funny ziggity-zaggity happening when you make sure that you are kind of ignoring this color change. And I'm going to pick up, because this is a row of the sapphire, I will just be picking up the blue loops here and not the navy ones. And on this side, I'll ignore the lighter blue and just pick up the navy, and that will make the leg will just then follow the color sequence that you want it to follow, and not end up, see how I'm choosing the light blue rather than the navy on this side, and the navy and not the light blue on this side. So there, that's how you get your rows to your row of stitching to go all nicely invisible. There, see? So you just, even though you have the bibble bobbles of other color, once you've stitched into the right loop, it just lines it up ever so nicely. So I'm just going to finish this, stitching this up, and then I can move on to showing you how to make those little feet. Now that the seams inside the legs are stitched, and you can see that well, that one isn't that perfect, but you know, they're better than they might have been. The next step now is to stuff the legs and the body, and I use I already have stuffed one leg in each of these. I use a pencil with a eraser on the end and as my stuffing tool, and I just get the eraser to carry that in for me. It works better than a dowel because the eraser grips the stuffing, and I kind of shape the legs as I'm doing it. I pinch here because I don't want I want the bear to be able to move its legs and sit, and so I don't like the leg stuffing to go too far up to the hip joint. So what I do is I do take the stuffing right down to the toes though. Okay, like that. And I will now stuff the top of the body. I had tucked all the yarn strands in. Normally I would use a matching color of the to match the body. Here I was kind of cleaning up my filming space and cleared away the sweater color strands of this body, the striped body. So it's going to have its neck sewn shut with the warp strand. Now the thing is that the neck opening is going to be completely covered by the head, so it's okay that I'm not matching the sweater strands here. So I'm picking up the loops of warp at the neck and pulling up on them to close the neck opening of the bear. And I tug, and that closes the neck of the bear. So now I'll stitch in and out just to make sure that the top of the bear is completely closed. There. And if there's any oddness happening with the strands, okay, I'm going to take this in and snip that off. If there's anything that looks a bit peculiar, I will take, where is it? I thought I brought it over. I did. I'll take a felting needle and just kind of give it a little bit of shaping with the felting needle, being careful that I don't give my fingers some perforations and shaping too. So the felting needles will just make sure that things are looking tickety-boo. Okay, so I'll do the same thing with this bear, but what I'm going to do now is show you the next step, which is the feet. Now, his legs have curled around, and we want his stripy trousers to be straight up and down. And I've got a bit of something funny happening here too. I've got a bit of loom lace showing. So just tack that in there and that in there just to close that off. That the loom lice are the little bits of warp strands that will ever so rudely show when you don't want them to. Okay, so the next step is to gather the toes. So I'm going to take this down through the channel of weaving, and I'll use both strands of the shoe color here. And I'm going to do the same thing I did up at the neck, which is to pick up the loop of warp strand with my needle. Oh, that did something weird. Okay, and stitch through each of the loops of warp strand. And what I want to have happen is I want those warp strands to disappear. So if I need to, I will stitch over any warp strands that are showing that I don't want to be showing. I'll stitch over them again just to, well, to secure the toe again, but also just to make the warp strands less visible. So get those in there. Now what I want to do is I want to fold the feet up, and I bring the needle up about a ½ an inch from that fold line there, and I will stitch through the leg and back through to the top of the foot, through the leg, make it secure, and I'm going to take one strand of yarn and stitch down the side of the foot and leg so that I stitch this side in place, to secure the sides of the foot, and then I'll bring this out at the bottom of the foot, and then I'll pick up the other strand that's still at the top, and stitch along the side of the foot with the other strand, securing the second side of the foot in place. Then I will work my way over, twist the two strands around each other, thread them back into my needle, and make a couple of stitches in place to secure them, because you want this all nice and secure. And again. And now you're going to take your yarn ends. I'll snip off that extra length there. Take your yarn ends inside the foot or the leg. Work them in and snip the ends. And again, if there's any place that is sticking out a little bit, that you want it to tuck in a little, use a felting needle. there we go. So I will, I'll do the second leg on this body and do both legs on this body and come back, and then it'll be time to do the head, because the next step is to add the head. And the head, the features are not put on until the very last, because you want to make sure that you're placing them exactly where they're supposed to go. So I'll be back in a mo with stuffed bodies, and the heads come up next.